competitive for grants, in order to do bond rates, in order to whatever, you guys need to be in a continual rate increase mode.
Well,
I'm not trying to throw you under the bus here, I'm just saying.
No, you should throw me under the bus,
should.
but this is one of the rare occasions where I can say, let's go back and read the minutes, because Carolyn, I did say. And this obviously is a policy decision that the elected representatives had to make, and I don't challenge that. But one of the concerns back in when we looked at rates in 2015, and we discussed the project and preliminary basis in their in the 2008 timeframe, is that you didn't know what project was the right project for you, and there was some reservation about starting to raise rates when you didn't know what you were funding. And I understand that. But what we talked about as UMBA's recommendation is that whatever solution you were going to take on was going to be a very large project. And you may not know whether it's going to be 8 million or 15 million or 25 million. It was going to be a very large project. And we suggested that one of the challenges that any community has is taking rates up dramatically in 1 or 2 steps. And such, that was the basis of our recommendation of looking at systematically starting moving that rate up to position yourself. Not only to position yourself for grants, because you still had quite a ways to go, but just trying to get your ratepayers accustomed. Instead of seeing 135% increase, seeing 10 incremental increases or 5 incremental increases allows people to adjust it. And the reason I know we made that recommendation is that is a common recommendation we make to communities that are faced with these challenges. But understandable, you didn't know what project you were going to be doing then. At the same time, you may recall we were talking about infrastructure needs not only on the water side, but wastewater potentially having investment needs as well. So there was a lot of uncertainty as to what, and so I can understand the decision not to. But throw me under the bus whenever you feel like it. I get paid the same amount whether I'm under the bus or not. But that is something that is a local decision. And I'm going to make one more recommendation to you. This increase is going to be substantial. Whatever project you do, this increase is going to be substantial. The biggest challenge that you're going to have is having the foresight to, once you put that increase in place, not wait 10 years. Don't wait 5 years when you move those rates up again, because costs will continue to go up. And nobody's going to come in and say thank you for holding my rates down. They appreciate it. You may say thank you in the comfort of your home. Coming to a meeting would be a rarity.
I'm waiting my turn to thank them.
Okay. There's always exceptions, but the majority of people will not come in and say thank you for holding those rates down and then having a substantial increase. But they certainly will show up to ask questions of why is it happening the way it's happening, the way it's going to happen to fund this project.
Mr. Myers.
What did it cost to drill a new well north of town? Two wells. No piping, nothing, just to drill the well.
Wells 3 and 7?
7.
Out by the tapes.
There were 3 of them, weren't there?
Oh, there's piezometers. Those are 2-inch wells to look at the soil. I can't remember what. Do you remember?
Piezo wells, I think 30-some thousand, I think, for the little ones.
Was that each, or was that in total?
I think it was each.
What's it cost to drill a well that we could use?
The big
Depends.
wells, like
80
well
to
7, is
110.
basically, 80 to 110,000. I mean, it just depends what, if you're going through rock, sand and gravel,
Depth.
what size, depth.
What number are the 2 golf course wells?
Well, so well 7's the new one that was drilled
At the
on the
golf
golf course. well 3 was lowered. It's right next to the golf course, but so is well 1 and well 2 that's dry.
Because $178,000 was spent last summer out there for those 2 wells. The money went to Skiles, the money went to your engineering people. It was $178. I looked at the appropriation sheet earlier today.
178,000 for
80,000 for one and 30,000 for the other. And 21,000 went to Skiles for, and about 45,000 to bring the well online, or to connect it to the main.
Well,
That's what
there's a
your
lot more work than
appropriation sheet
drilling
says.
the well on that. He had a building, he had electricity, he had,
Right, but I'm just.
300
that's what
foot
was
water
spent last
main.
summer.
Yeah, the cost of drilling the well was 80 to 110,
Right.
and then you've got to hook everything up to
But
it.
those are 7 and 3, is that what you're talking about? Those,
Correct, but I think his question was out in the Tays.
okay.
I can't remember, I think it was close to 90,000 drill the test/production well, 12-inch well out there, somewhere around there.
Sounds about right there.
Which, Mr. Schaubler's question earlier as to quality of water, and I know Peerless has said it before, and I think, Matt, you've said it before, is that you can estimate all you want what the quality of water is going to be, but until you drill a well and you pump test it, you're not going to know. I was just reading minutes from 1996. I didn't get to 2008, sorry, Councilman Garrison. But they drilled that well. It was on the west end of town, and they drilled one on the Tom Floor property. You had 2 different issues. One was bacteria, which they believe was caused from a confined animal feeding operation or some sort of livestock operation. The other one was farming practices on the soil for the monitoring.
My point is, we know the Tays River is iron, correct?
Iron and manganese.
Iron, manganese. Yeah, but it's $100,000 a piece for a well. If it's $100,000 a piece for a well, then my math is not real good, but that's, you go out there and spend $1 million for 10 new wells and pipe it back to town for 2. That's $3 million. And then you do your infrastructure, like it's 3, 4 million. That don't even come close to 14 million. So why are we spending 14 million to patch the junk?
I think those estimates are a little a little deflated. I mean, the cost of a treatment plant alone out there was estimated construction cost of $4 million for the iron and manganese. Now it was sized to be able to be expanded in the future.
My point is, I understand what you're saying. My point is, we go out there and drill new wells and start over cheaper, and you can fix this one.
No.
This one.
It's $27 million. We already have the plan.
It's $700,000 to drill a well.
Right.
Still got
We
like
have all the
$5
infrastructure.
I mean, you've got
I put that in. It's $5 million.
You've got the iron and manganese treatment, you've got the line coming back into town, you've got, well, I mean, that's the bulk of it. Is there anything else that was included in that?
And what else we got to do?
There's high service pumping, storage, all those things were involved in that $27 million figure for the full-blown project out to the Tays.
Now it's 27, 25,
Now
wow,
it's
you know, we,
I can't remember what it was.
I guess itemize that 27, 25, whatever the figure, tax figure is.
I've got-
Itemize it for me.
It was done at the first water meeting back in March. I don't have it in front of me. I've got a PowerPoint I
It was the same
can.
answer, Mr. Mayor, same answer.
What's that?
I think it was. That was the same answer I got. I think 25 or 27, something like that. That's the answer I got.
I can't, it's been 6 months, I know, man. It's a lot of numbers. I can go downstairs and get it for you.
I think it's about 25, that was the same answer you gave me then.
I don't think, Danny, I don't really think we can give you a straight answer for the simple reason we can't
That's
go
my
out
point,
and
Brian.
pay engineering to do this study, engineering to do this study, engineering to do this study. So if we have 5 different studies, engineering companies aren't lining up going, hey, I'll do that for you for free. So you're gonna pay $80,000 for each one of them to go out there and give us a plan and all the numbers. So, the cost is easy to sit there and speculate on your own.
But you don't need an engineering study. What you need is a water table study, like the gentleman back there.
You have to have engineering to be able to do the
I
construction.
understand that.
We're
That's not
talking
the-
construction, we know where the water's at. It's getting the water where we want it. That's where the money is. You gotta have new storage tanks.
You missed my point completely. You missed my point completely.
The point is it's, again, it's X, And that shouldn't be worrying. We gotta fix a water problem.
Ryan, I'm saying the same thing. I'm trying to make the same point you are.
I don't think so.
Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, along with a third party, put together estimates to get water from the Taves.
That overall project number cost was estimated at $25,503,850.
Is that just the construction, or was that with contingency?
That's with
and soft cost?
contingency, soft cost, land ag.
And that should have been in the PowerPoint back in March. I'm sorry. And that should have been itemized back in the PowerPoint back in March.
That's for the new northwest well field, new northwest water treatment plant, Carrollton Road transmission water main to the north, west well field, Carrollton Road ground storage expansion, Armory Road existing tank rehabilitation, and then the Deer Creek and Hilltop tank rehabs.
I had another question out there, but I can't remember who it was from. Somebody had their hand up.
So of the 131% to 35% increase that is being thrown around this room, if you said tomorrow that you were going to insert that, everybody on your water bills downstairs, everybody that gets a water bill gets a 131% increase. Is that true? Or are the homeowners taking care of it and the businesses? I want to know, if you're supplying water to IPC, are they going to get a 131% increase?
It was 135%. I think, John, you want to speak to IPC?
Yeah, let's, the rate study has not been completed. Okay? So when I talk about 135%, I'm talking about right now your rates generate $1 million. When this is done, they got to generate 2.3 plus million dollars. So that's why when we talk about 135%. There's two ways to adjust rates in Indiana and stay consistent with statutory requirements. We can do an across-the-board basis, in which case everyone would see the same percentage increase. Or there's what's known as a cost of service study that looks at, when you're building this nature of the project is so significantly different from your historical operations, you would look at the different classes of customers paying their fair share. So that study has not been done, but I can tell you there's nothing in the state statute that allows the residential class to subsidize the industrial class, or the industrial class to subsidize the residential class. This is a cost of service state that everyone has to pay in accordance to the cost of the delivering service.
So the answer to my question that you just looked at me and said, yes, they pay the same rate that we'll pay.
No.
No, okay.
That's
so
not, well,
what
let
you
me,
said.
let me answer it.
Okay.
So I'll try to answer it in a way that, I'm not trying to dodge the question, let me just try to answer it the way. The very common way of increasing rates in Indiana and being consistent with statute is you have it across the board, which means if your bill's going, the residential bills are going 135%, then IPC's rates will go up 135%.
And every business in this town.
And everybody else within that. And that is one option. Given the time frame we're on, at least the first phase very likely will be an across-the-board adjustment. There's a second methodology for setting rates in Indiana that's consistent with state statute, which looks at the total cost of delivering service and splitting that up by classes. So it identifying that the residential customers drive the cost needle X percent, so their bills will generate X percent. The commercial class costs Y to receive service, their bills will generate Y. The industrial class costs Z, the industrial class will pay Z.
And the municipal class.
And municipal class, that is true. One of the chief functions of the water utility is providing fire protection. One of the primary customers of of that service is the city of Delphi for fire protection. They need to pay their proportionate share. So the rate study isn't done. I can't tell you if we're going to go on a across-the-board basis or a cost-of-service basis. But at the end of the day, to stay consistent with state statute, this council cannot say the residential class is going to keep the IPC rates low because we love IPC, or conversely, they can't say we're going to make IPC rates higher because we want them to help offset the cost of the project. That would not be permissible within the state statute.
Thank you.
But is it not true that the more water, I mean, IPC uses a lot of water, and the more water they use, their rate goes down on those larger quantities. Is that not true?
The existing rate structure does have a declining block, and I know that this crowd does not want to lecture on cost of service study, because if you think what I've said was boring before, it's going to get a whole lot more boring. But the rate structure it is now, you do get a discount for a high volume.
Could you at least briefly explain why?
Because
Without going into too much depth.
Because the last bracket that you reach when you're a high volume user is covering only variable cost of delivering water, which is primarily the electricity for pumping it out of the ground and delivering it, and any chemical costs for treating it. All of the fixed costs associated with covering bond payments, labor expense, normal routine maintenance are covered in those earlier brackets.
Is that consistent with other municipalities around the state?
It is. It's still a very common practice to have declining blocks.
Can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
So currently, you're asking for us to, and the board, to come up with a solution for getting some money to pay for all of this. But yet you don't have a plan yet to figure out how you're going to get the money. Is that about right? Because you can have one of two different ways of accessing the money from the public and the industrial area around here. You either have a fixed rate or you have a different rate, which you have explained to me 2 times, which I understand that. So if you have a $14 million project, how are we going to fund it? That's what the people are looking to find out. Because if you're going to fund it X, which you've used, Y and Z, if you're going to fund the households at X and Z for the industrial, that's going to hurt probably the homeowner, but it's going to help the big business that we pump out 32 million last month and IPC used 26.
The answer to that question is, whether you're talking Delphi or any of the other hundreds of utilities in the state of Indiana, when you're talking about a project, the first question you have to answer is this the project for you? Because that drives it. And I'll tell you, very few places that I've been to in the 37 years that I've been doing this, that you're talking about the potential of not being able to meet the water needs of the community. I mean, that's not my sandbox to play in. But you're talking about some pretty critical decisions of whether this project's really needed. Once that decision's made, then you get into the funding plan. That's when people like UMBAW get involved. And our responsibility is to give you a funding plan that gets you the project you need with the most reasonable rates. The other provision there is you have to do it in according to state statute. So when you decide what project you're going to do, then you'll engage me to do the rate study. And I'll tell you what our recommendation would be with that objective, giving you the most reasonable funding plan, plus making sure that if anyone were to challenge it, UMBAW is prepared to provide testimony supporting our recommendation.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So the only options are grant money, which we've decided we're not able to go after, or not able to do that right now, or a loan. There is no other options for the money to come from.
Yes, that is the 2 options for funding of a capital project.
Now, last week, Councilman Seward brought up spending edit funds. And do you want to speak to that matter?
You have a balance of edit dollars, and each year you get some additional edit funding. My recommendation is find out what options how successful you might be from a grant perspective before you start committing your own dollars. Let a third party have the option of contributing grants, then decide whether edit is worth contributing to this project. When you introduce edit into the funding mix, there are some things that you have to think about. If you're going to commit it towards the payment of debt, then you have constitutional debt issues, that you're going to be taking a bonding option for other municipal needs off the table for the duration of that debt. And many communities feel it's prudent to be able to have general obligation bonding capacity if you had a project that called for that as the best funding source. So there's some things that we need to find out before you make the decision whether edit is a good source of funding for this project or it shouldn't be held back for other reasons.
Dr. Bernard, are you?
Yes, I've lived here for over 30 years. I appreciate so much what the city has done, the water supply has done. Tonight on the news, they're talking about Detroit, Michigan, having high lead. Kids can't drink out of the water anymore. Flint, Michigan had a horrible water problem. Delphi, you have done a wonderful job. I did not realize our rates are so low. So over the 30 years, I have to congratulate you for being so good to us, the residents, keeping our fees low. Following up on Councilwoman Carolyn, if you would have came to this group 10 years ago and said, we're going to raise your rates for a potential future expense that we don't know what it is, but we're going to raise your rates just because we might need more money, this group would not have bought into it. So we are...
It's part of the group. I don't think you should characterize the whole group.
That's fine, that's fine. I've never seen anybody come up and volunteer, yeah, go ahead and raise my rates. I feel good, yeah, raise them up, go ahead.
You'd be surprised.
Well, I think you've done a wonderful job. Your fiscal management, your fiduciary management, your rate control, a problem has developed, and at least we're not dealing with the same ones they are in Michigan. So we don't have people dying, we don't have heavily contaminated water, we've got good, clean water, and we can consume it. And we just need to find more of it. So I want to thank you for the years of kicking this can down the road and allowing us to live here and to enjoy the water. Thank you.
Mr. Hayden?
I want to make sure that I misunderstood me earlier. My concern here is not, I said this last meeting, is the rates. That's not my concern. My concern is having water. That's my concern. And I'm not so sure we're going the right direction. I voiced my opinion with Shane after the meeting last meeting I went to. I'm not sure I know what the answer is, but I want a permanent fix. It doesn't matter what that rate is.
I think you're looking at a balancing act.
Maybe so.
And I think I can't get into your head, but I think the current well field option will last longer than what you believe it will. Neither of us know one way or the other. Maybe I'm more optimistic, maybe I'm more naive. Either way. This project is accomplishing a lot of things for the city of Delphi, and it's doing it at an increase that nobody likes, but it's doing it at an increase that should keep us below floor, should keep us around a lot of these other municipalities or below. The alternative would be $11 million more. I don't know what that is off the top of my head and what it does to the rate increases. Then you're looking at seriously hitting the residents of the city of Delphi. And I think as a council, as an elected body, as members of the public, we're all caught in that balancing act of how much money do we spend for what amount of security. And it's my opinion that this option, looking forward into the future, looking at rate increases, looking at exploring the TAs and other options, is the right way to go. The best use of funds that we're going to have to ask ratepayers, industries, businesses, residents for.
My problem with this whole situation is, again, we've not done our due diligence. You had an article in the paper last week that Flora was wanting to help and negotiate with us and things like that. You turn that down. You don't know what the potential benefit of that might be if you talk to them. Turning it down and going with this one and only option that we've been tunnel visioned on since earlier in the year, I got a problem with that. I mean, we don't know what the situation from Flora would be. We don't have any idea. There's also Friday, I got a phone call from a gentleman in Indianapolis from a water utility that has expressed interest in buying our water and our infrastructure and putting it under their business name and you know, basically privatizing it. When you were asked about that at the March meeting, you said, well, you know, if you think our rates are high now, wait till you get that rates or those rates from something like that. Well, I checked those rates and they're not, you know, they're nowhere near the increased rate that we're looking at by going this direction. We just have simply not done our homework with this.
I thought we talked about that at the June meeting. John, you weren't here. The other representative from Humboldt was here.
Yeah.
Is that correct? About privatizing the water system?
Well, the answer to that is pretty simple. You know, when you privatize, you go from a not-for-profit to a profit. The management decisions are not made locally, they're made at corporate headquarters. And the decisions are going to be made based upon what is the most critical to the corporation. What you'll find is, if you're talking about an investment of multi-million dollars that are required to continue to serve customers, you're going to be competing for those dollars with other service areas within that list of utilities that they run, not only in Indiana, but if they're a national utility with other communities, and they're going to put that investment in areas where they're going to get the greatest return, because that's what it is. It's a business decision that they're making to earn a profit. If that's what you want to do, you need to recognize that you will pay for this cost of this improvement either directly or through their rate structure, which is designed for them to earn a return on investment and a profit.
We don't know that.
No, I know it because that's the business I'm in.
We haven't seen that.
Well, I've seen it in plenty of places.
You've seen it, we haven't, that's the point.
I understand.
West Lafayette, they have a private owner, and they've had nothing but problems. So you check with West Lafayette.
I checked with other people and they're
They've had a lot of
seeing
problems, because
that.
they only make improvements when they want to make them.
Okay.
Your decision-making doesn't matter anymore. If
I'm
you
aware
say,
of that.
I need this project, that corporation, they don't have to answer to you anymore.
Right.
You're out of it. And their rate making, you're out of it. And that's a huge policy decision. When you lose control of your ability to provide basic services to your elected constituent, the people that elect you, just think about that long and hard.
I thought very clearly of it. I understand the concept wholeheartedly. All I'm saying is, we've not seen a proposal. We've not seen any information from them at all. There again, no due diligence.
But I guess his point was they are for profit. You are not for profit.
I get the public-private thing. I understand that wholeheartedly.
All right.
I've known that since I was 12. I get that. But not seeing a proposal, not seeing any information from them, how do we know that's not a good idea, other than from you guys are telling us? And you guys are for profit also, when you get right down to it.
But our job is to provide the best financial advice and the best package. I don't think we're in any way steering you towards something that benefits our firms. It's something that benefits you, the client.
Okay.
So if you don't believe that,
If we privatized and went that direction, would you be here next year?
Would we be here next year for, well, we
anything
provide,
dealing with water.
if you sell the utility, you would not have to require utility services. We provide services a number of ways, but we wouldn't be here for utility. I can tell you, and you have to decide whether the right consultants are here in the room for you or not. But I can tell you this, and I'm not a salesman, I'm an accountant, that we are who we are because we give what we honestly believe the best advice that we can offer. And in doing that, we have to tell you some things that you may not want to hear, but we think you should hear. But ultimately, you make the decisions.
But that's incorrect to say that we determine consultants that are here. That's strictly up to the mayor. We have no decision and no guideline over that.
But whether you listen to what we have to say and what you take from that is a decision that you'll individually have to make. The last issue that regarding privatization and the fact that critical decisions now made are at corporate level, which aren't local. The lifeblood of a community to keep it a place that people want to live, and which makes your tax rates low, your utility rates low, are economic development growth. You've got to keep what you have, and you hopefully grow from that. One of the biggest challenges that we've seen in communities that have privatized their utilities is when companies come in that require utility services, they need to know that the people locally are making those decisions. And that would not be the case if you privatize. So you will be at a disadvantage if you don't have control over your utilities when it comes to trying to entice people to stay or people to come to your community and grow.
From the amount of cities on their list, which includes Kokomo, Muncie, and a lot of those others, I can't agree with that. West Lafayette, yeah. I can't agree with that. They're not like Delphi that hasn't grown and hasn't had a population increase worth a hoot for years. These places are growing, so not always the correct thing.
So are they in the same ballpark that we are, where we have an issue with what if U.S. aggregates goes down deeper? Do they have that same issue, or are they using the water table that flows through their area? Do you know that?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you brought something up that we as a people have elected you. You should be able to give us that answer that you've gone out and pursued that.
Mm-hmm.
So far, you give me an answer and say, no, I haven't looked at that.
No,
But you want to talk about it.
That's not what I said. I said, I don't know. I haven't had the chance to look at it. This should have been studied much